Well, how's that for some fireworks, eh? This is the Inworld Review, and we're wishing you all, of course, a happy new year. Sparkle, sparkle. And here I am. Here I am. I think I am anyway. My name is Mal Burns, and this is the Inworld Review. It's a show where we look at the goings on, places, the arts, and everything else on the hypergrid. And the hypergrid is a system that connects multiple grids, virtual world grids together. So long as they're running some variant of the OpenSim platform technology, they all join together so you can jump from one place to another to servers all over the world to locations diverse. Okay, and we'll be doing a little bit of that today. I will have to say Happy New Year again, of course, because it is. And we'll be doing a little bit near the end of the show of looking back on that was the hypergrid that was. Not that it's gone anywhere, of course, but a year gone by in the hypergrid, should I say. We've also got some guests from Littlefield Grid, or LF Grid, as I believe they sometimes call their name tags anyway. We're going to be talking, about Littlefield Grid, which is one of the destinations on the hypergrid, but also four particular regions that we've got here to talk about, so to speak. We filmed in advance for you. Right. The first thing I'm going to do is we're not going to do a hypergrid happening section this week because I'm just going to hand over to Thirza briefly and she'll tell us about what's on the two screens behind us because that's really all there is to say this week. So Thirza, sorry, and I must introduce her first. My co-host, Thirza Ember, she of the
Hello.
New Year liquor.
Yes, something of that nature. Hello, everybody. Nice to see everybody here.
Right. So we're back on the road midweek, aren't we?
Okay. Well, there's two things I was going to mention this week. One of them is rather a sad event, and that is the memorial service that's going to be held on alternate metaverse grid. And that is the idea of that is to celebrate the life of Veritas McMaster, who we lost just before Christmas in a very tragic house fire. As all the guests here on the stage know, Veritas was very active in OpenSim. She had loads of friends, and I think Walter, Cameron, Dirk, and Ashton, our guests here today, I think you all knew Veritas, didn't you? I think.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
she came to a lot of our events and things, and
Yes.
she was a good friend of the grid. We really liked Veritas. She was a lovely lady.
She was very active. She was a huge help when Fest was on. She was a great one there to be the greeter and keep the events animated all during the music events. And of course, she was partnered with Nick Spreen, so it's a huge loss for him too. And she was a great influence on his most recent art exhibits. Anyway, so we have the opportunity to go and remember her. The other thing that's happening is the safari trips are starting again. That will be this coming Wednesday. And we have two really nice destinations. If you've never been over to Third Rock Grid and seen the Space Odyssey build by Lauren Tone and Alia Silver Soul, you're really missing because it's just a very incredible display that they've done there with lots of sounds. It really brings you into the movie in an incredible way. So that's one of our stops. The other one is to a Joomla exhibition. And if you don't know what Joomla is, come along and find out. And so those are the two things I wanted to mention today.
Great. Well, hopefully lots more happening in the new year, and we'll return with our proper hypergrid happenings section this time next week. Now, before I move to our guests, you heard a couple of them talking already, but I better tell you who we got here. Just from Littlefield Good, we got Dirk Mathers. Welcome, Dirk.
Thank you. Hello.
We've got Cameron Darkstone. Welcome,
Oh,
Cameron.
yeah, I'm glad to be here.
We've got Ashton Nobilis, the,
Hello.
the noble Ashton. Welcome, Ashton.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the man himself, Walter Balazic.
Hi,
Welcome,
how you doing, Mel? Thank you.
Walter, indeed. Right, now we're going to come back to you in a minute. I suddenly thought I'd better get your names out of the way because you, in case you know, were commenting on other things. First of all, we're going to spend 2 minutes actually having a look at well, basically a celebration of Veritas McMasters. So we will respect this, as it were. Very sad indeed there, and of course it was on Christmas Eve, and not a very pleasant way.
Yeah, so that's actually tomorrow. I think the poster says the 12th, but that's actually tomorrow, the 2nd of January, that the event happens. So as many people as can, wish to, can just pop by and pay their respects and share their memories of Veritas.
Right. Okay. Well, it's hard to think that, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago she was on the stage at the conference as well, you know, and that, of course, what we saw there is Nick's Breen's artwork in the background there, which is devilishly hard to actually film. So he did a good job there too. Right. Okay. So let's move on to the Littlefield grid. Before we move to the visuals, maybe I guess Walter, you're probably the best person to tell us a little bit about the history of Littlefield Grid. I mean, and obviously, you know, I get from the post you have the regular, is it Friday night thing that comes every week and stuff. But maybe just tell us quickly about the history, or you know, from the beginning to now, as it were.
All right. Essentially, we've been around. In April, we'll be here 10 years in the hypergrid. We've been up continually. We were only down for, I believe, about 2 weeks during our recent 9.2 upgrade, but outside of that, we've been up 24/7 for 10 years now. The grid started basically. It was Dirk, myself, and Ashton came up with a concept together. We were running a few regions in OS Grid, well, a few being about 100 regions actually. And it was a little too big. So you know, we ran into Ashton there, and we befriended Ashton, and we got on right away. I mean, Ashton and Dirk are both, like, you know, brothers to me. We get together in real life and everything, so we're very close. And so we decided the way to go was, you know, to get a grid together. I mean, we moved to Open Simulator originally because Dirk and I were very close in SL, and Dirk ran a simulator, a region called Stonehaven, and
Yeah.
yeah, him and I hung out on Stonehaven quite a bit, and we finally got to the point where we said, hey, how much money are we paying in rent for our regions or our simulators here? Um, for seeing the same 25 people. I said we could just bring them to Open Simulator. And, early on, we came in when it was like version 6.1, so it was not feasible then. But, by the time it migrated to around version 7, 7.1, we figured it was feasible to move here permanently. And, like I said, we ran into Ashton. Ashton is our head developer. He's pretty much the grid designer. Eric handles all of our scripting. I handle back end region stuff, and Cameron is our lead builder. She builds a lot of the regions, the public regions that you saw, like Mill Run. Her and I worked on that. Falling Water, and she's built almost every public region you see. The 9/11 Memorial, Cameron was responsible for building that whole thing. In fact. So, and we do have two other grid admins. One can't be here right now; she's working. It's Toy McBride. She lives in Australia, and Windrunner Constantine, who also had to work, but she's the one that's in charge of the Air and Space Museum at Littlefield.
Right. Well, we have film of all these actually, and to get us brightened up a bit. I think I'll go start with Falling Water. As I said, maybe Cameron, you'd like to come in on this, as Walter said, you designed the build, so to speak. I've got about 5 minutes of film here, so maybe tell us a little bit about it as I run the film. Unfortunate avatar standing in front of the camera there, but there we are, getting going now. We did, of course, come to you on safari in the last season, and I've actually got loads of other film that we took from then, but this I just did a couple of days ago. So tell us about what we're seeing. Obviously, the Frank Lloyd Wright connection there, obviously, with the building, but how you
Right.
went about building it, maybe.
Well, it's actually one of my very first builds. Not long after I met Walter, we discovered a mutual respect for the work of Frank Lloyd Wright, and he challenged me to build this, and we worked on it together. And our goal was to try to not just reproduce the real life site, but also to make it usable in a virtual world. So
Yeah.
we modified some of the proportions a little bit, but the main purpose of it was to share this remarkable work with people and let them understand what it is, which is a home in harmony with nature. And it was revolutionary when it was built because the prevailing style of architecture would have shielded people from this waterfall so that you could be protected by a house a short distance from the waterfall and look out and see the waterfall.
Right.
But Frank Lloyd Wright built the house as part of the waterfall, so you
Yeah.
become part of the nature. And that uh, that concept was revolutionary for its time. And you can see a lot of in the images that you're seeing, you can see a lot of his trademark architectural features, such as the broad horizontal lines, which are meant to reflect the horizon and ground the building to the earth and make it feel part of the earth. And
It's
I actually went to
interesting that
see.
his style is very modern in its own right.
Mhm.
So it actually combines with nature that way. I mean, it's the materials of the house, for example, they're not wood or anything rustic. It's very modern, but nevertheless succeeds in sort of
Yes,
merging
he
with its
insisted on
environment.
using natural materials. The stone he built with is all local stone. Um, and the metal is painted a color that he developed called Cherokee Red, which is found in the forest around the building. And The floor is slate again, from local source, and he designed all of the furniture, and all of the fabrics, and the rugs even, that are in there, also that it would be part of a unified whole. It's really a
I
remarkable
I
work.
love this bit where you press the you go down the stairs and go
Right.
paddling. Well, I don't know
That's
about real life, but it was paddling for me.
that's Dirk's handiwork actually. The
It's
that
good.
sliding door,
Yes.
because that does exist in Falling Water. That actual
Mm.
door.
Yeah, it's like when you're in the house, you can't see the waterfall, but you can hear it. And if you slide open that door that Dirk so masterfully created, you can
It
walk
gets
down
louder.
to the
Mm.
water.
Yeah. Or
I
anything.
found the valley that you created intriguing and very beautiful because the house obviously is a gem, but you've set it in this wonderful valley. There's a real feeling of being in the woods. Was that something that you had developed when you first built the house, or did that come later?
No, I intentionally did it that way from the beginning. I'm not the first, we aren't the first people to try to build this particular building in a virtual world, but a lot of people try to put it on top of a mountain or something like
Oh,
that. But the real life one is buried in a valley, just like this. You can't see it until you're right on top of it. You walk down this path to get to it, and suddenly it,
Yeah.
it's emerges. So it's in this very sheltered and very green location. Um,
do you think you would have been able to build it if you hadn't seen it in real life? Do you think that made a big difference to how you built it, or did you build it first and then go and see it?
oh no, I saw it first,
Okay.
and then built it, and I think that was, that sense of how concealed it is in the woods, really
There's
struck
such a
me.
sense of place when you're there. There's a
Yeah,
real
that's
sense of
what we were
you're in a
hoping for.
place. You're not just on a sim. You're in a real place. I think it's just a brilliant piece of work.
And Walter and I had a lot of fun, reconstructing all the little details. There's a fireplace in the living room that has this big kettle that can swing over the fire to heat drinks.
Yeah.
And Walter enjoyed building that.
Yeah, enjoyed. Yeah.
And designing the kitchen, which had we built the kitchen to real life scale, you wouldn't have been able to move inside of it
Yeah.
because
Oh,
the real kitchen is very, very small. Um, but we made it big enough so that avatars can actually walk around in it without your camera getting trapped in the wall.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was like I said, it was one of the very first things that I built, but it really awakened in me an interest in architecture that has led to a lot of other collaborations in various types of architectural styles that we have all over Littlefield, Art Deco and an American style called Parkitecture, and the various other things that we built. It's fun for me to learn about the various styles as we're building.
Great. Well, the next clip I've got, I paused it at the moment, is for the a 9/11 memorial, which is quite small actually, but so a symbolic thing. Who's the best person to talk about that? Do you think of you
Look,
lot?
that was also Cameron's design. In fact, Cameron and I worked, and mostly I did some of the props that are in there, but Cameron was working with pictures prior to it being complete. We had this actually open, I think maybe a year before it was actually opened in real life, and Cameron had just taken pieces of the design and started building on it. And we got some of the major components. Obviously, it's not to scale or whatnot, but it has the major components that the real 9/11 memorial has. But Cameron can tell you, more about that actually.
Well, obviously the two main features are those two negative space waterfalls
Yeah.
on the site of where the World Trade Center towers were. Um, and that again, we were just working off like Google Maps Street View and whatever photos we could find in order to figure out what it was going to look like. But I think that what we came up with captures the spirit of it as well as can be, and Walter assembled all of the museum artifacts there.
Was that an instant decision that you wanted to make that memorial for
Well,
Inworld?
yeah, Cameron and I both lost friends in the towers, so
Yeah.
we
I
did
worked
that
in
right
New
away.
York I worked in New York at the time of a block and a half from the World Trade Center, and Walter and I both narrowly missed being caught in it that day.
Yeah, I was supposed to actually be working in Tower 1 that day, and
Good grief.
being a slacker, I got up late and ended up going to my office in Princeton instead. And luckily,
Slacking can save lives then.
yeah,
That's
right,
good to know.
that worked
I'm
out.
glad to know
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Very lucky, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's important to us because we have a personal connection to it.
Absolutely. And again, there's a great sense of space when you go there. I do love that. You could feel that. You can feel the emotion. I love the way you've paid so much tribute to the firefighters. That's a beautiful touch.
Actually, I don't know if you got the video of it, but if you go off to the other side, we added this about 2 years ago. Zai Shai, who owns Ruritania on our grid, built what's called the Tower of Voices, which is the Flight 93
Yes.
memorial. So yeah, you can see it off to one side, and it's beautiful. I mean, we have the actual audio track of the bells, and she did an excellent job with that, though. So everybody on our grid tends to collaborate together on things, which is really nice. So it was really kind of her to put that together for us, and it was a nice addition to the memorial.
It's a shame this film is pre-recorded, so I can't come into where you.
Yeah, no.
But anybody who would like to come and visit, it's easy to see the Tower of Voices. It hovers over.
So somebody put an awful lot of work into this next one, the Air and Space Museum. I mean, I've got about 6 minutes of film here. The size of some of the military equipment, planes, boats, trains, automobiles, whatever you name it, but the sheer size of the things in the exhibit there, you could only really appreciate at a distance, all really close up, and you could be, if you weren't really close up, we'd be there for several days. So, so
this is.
Yeah.
This is actually owned and operated by windrunner Constantine, who's one of our grid admins. She loves all of the military stuff. In fact, she shows me a picture every day of a new display that she's putting in. So she updates this continuously. I know she's done a lot of work on it. She's trying to get a collection of, every plane, boat. Yeah, I mean, any ship, anything that has anything to do with, air and flight. And she is working on a military museum to go in conjunction with this that will have ships, military vehicles, and so on and so forth. She's quite the expert on this. So
that's the beauty of OpenSim, isn't it? That you can just throw up another sim next door and just have another whole museum. And back in the day in Second Life, that was unthinkable. You have to only use the space you have, the prims you have.
Yes. Now it is, and actually that was Dirk Ash and I joke about that sometimes because we'll get this wild idea in our head and we're like, hey, let's just throw a sim up, just throw a sim up and build something, which is great because, like you said, in SL, this was costing us. When we left, between all of us, I believe we were spending probably in the neighborhood of, $2,500 a month in tier to SL, and that was for, I don't know, 4 or 5 regions, 6 regions, something like that, simulators actually. And now for, a similar, price point, you can operate, a grid. And the performance of our grid is superior on many levels to SL, to be honest. I mean, and SL actually right now is in a sort of a
Complete mess.
it's a
The
mess. Yeah,
lag.
I'm
Yes, the
trying to be.
lag.
Yeah.
The
Yes,
lag there recently has been awful. I just don't want to
yes,
go there. I can't wait to get back to OpenSim.
exactly.
So
Yeah, I
true.
mean,
So true.
I went there when we just recently upgraded to 9.2 with a lot of work from Ashton, and he can elaborate more on that. But uh, the difference between being on our grid and SL is insane. It's like night and day. Ash, go ahead.
I
I mean,
always
you might.
feel. Don't
Yeah.
you always feel a bit claustrophobic when you go to Second
Oh
Life? Because
yeah.
it's like, oh, there's too many people here,
Well,
like
I
on
have to
top of
worry.
each other.
Well, what makes the difference for me is I can't upload things for free.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Or modify them. Or
Yeah, where I
modify
got to
them.
worry about
Who thinks that?
prims. I mean, but yeah, Ash, why don't you tell them a little about the upgrade while you're here? Because we just did that.
Yeah,
Um,
Oh,
please.
sure. Yeah. I mean, we had stayed at 0821 for quite a long period of time, longer than I would have liked. But because of various things going on in real life and whatnot, these things get deferred. And it had so many assets and so much of people's information and their data that they've generated and their memories, and I didn't want to just randomly upgrade and destroy anything or lose any data. So we did it when the time was right. After a few sort of trials, seeing the differences, because by the time I did have time to get around to it, you're talking about 7 years of development, which is an eternity, right? So things are a little bit different. But yeah, everything went really well. I'm absolutely staggered and amazed at how well that it does run. And yeah, Second Life is it's a great place. I'm sure it's where we all got our starts, but it's not. It can't hold a candle in terms of performance. And I think when you don't have to worry about every little prim, every little texture upload, every little this, that, or the other, I think that makes an environment where creativity can flourish.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. And I imagine with behavior scripts and things, Dirk, I imagine that's something that you appreciate too. I mean, put it mildly.
Yeah, definitely. I note too that under 9.2 and Y-Engine scripts run so much faster. It uh, it really is remarkable, especially compared to the olden days in SL, where one had to be particularly careful about script load in a region, or everything
Yeah.
would slow to mush. I'm thinking of the mono upgrade, and they introduced mono, and we're encouraging everyone to write their scripts in mono. And well, Ash can tell you about that better than I can. How uh, the they never they had problems with threading on it. Wherein if
Yeah.
someone would teleport into a region, suddenly everything would cease. And we don't have problems like that in Open Simulator.
Yeah.
It simply doesn't exist.
now, Dirk and
It's inevitable. I know with Second Life, they, they cram as many actual simulations as they can into individual servers, and they're dealing with such volume. They can't really help but
well,
get
I
this
I
load
think
down.
well they've gone to my understanding. I'm friends with Jessica Lyon from Firestorm.
Oh yeah,
Her and I
yeah.
talk quite a bit, and my understanding is that they've gone to they're on a cloud-based model now,
Oh yeah, we're down with the
and
cloud. Yeah,
their graphics engine, their graphics display system now is a fluctuating or a rotating display, very similar to what sort of the on-demand type thing that Kitely has, but they have on-demand for textures instead of entire
Yeah.
regions. You know, in our case, well, at least in Littlefield, I don't know how everybody else operates, but we have bare metal servers and several of them in a data center in Texas. So it's going to be better performance regardless. I mean, we spare no expense to make sure that, you know, the people that live there, this is our home. This is where, you know, all of us live as well as our residents. So, you know, we never wanted hardware to be a bottleneck and say, oh, well, you know, we have to be careful where we put this or who does that or scripts because, you know, the hardware can't support it. I mean, the very first thing we did when we put things together was to make sure we had the very best hardware we could have and a lot of it. So SL, where they're going backward, in my opinion, going into the cloud realm, and I know a lot of the grids run the cloud, and that's fine. We just feel that this environment lends itself to having, you know, bare metal hardware is the best way to go, in our
Yeah.
opinion, with this, you know. So
Yeah, it hadn't occurred to me the AWS connection might be contributing to the mess Second Life seems to be in, oddly enough. Even though it was meant to cure it. Yeah. Okay, I've got this picture is prelude to the final region. I must have got about 12 minutes or so of this.
Wardenclyffe,
Everything
yes.
I must admit, you know, I kind of took a liking to Elon. Elon, when, you know, naming the car Tesla and talking about reviving all that wonderful early, you know, sort of wireless electricity and things like that. But, you know, it's almost like it was like you know, green cars, you know, that ran on things other than petroleum. You know, they industry wanted petroleum. There was money in it, so they just shut down the alternatives and covered them up. You know, now see what we've got. Unfortunately, of course, the same musketeer, I call him, has recently bought for I can't even remember how much it is. It's not. There's lots of O's, you know. He's bought Twitter, and it seems he's come really unstuck there, and we're learning a few things about him we'd rather not. But I mean, I must admit, is, you know, the idea of a modern technologist looking to the past, I think, especially Tesla as inspiration, is quite interesting. This picture is just a short clip before the longer clip I did. We're just showing a long shot of the well, I call it an island, but you know, the patch it's on basically. You know, there's a load in the building we're going to see, but I mean, the tower here and if it doesn't remind you of a Frankenstein movie, it reminds you of Tesla. It's iconic, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I looked into we all are, but I'm a very big Tesla fan, and I've often thought that yeah, I live in New Jersey, so Edison is big here, and I
Yeah.
think Edison's a criminal myself, but that's, you know, a whole other matter. I don't like how he treated Tesla. He took a lot of Tesla
Yeah.
and other people's ideas and used them as his own, and so we wanted to do something that really showcased, you know, Nikola Tesla, and this is a replica of his laboratory, Wardenclyffe, and that was his tower. That was originally I looked up some blueprints of the original tower for, you know, that they had at Wardenclyffe's laboratory, and that's what this is. We tried to make it reasonably close. You'll see photographs in here of the actual laboratory, and we tried to recreate those areas as best as we could, and as well make it kind of a learning museum type thing. So there's Cameron put a lot of displays in that actually will tell you all about Tesla and different things that he did. So, you know, interesting sim. We really enjoyed putting this together.
It's
Right.
spectacular when you arrive and you see the lightning like that. It's so
Yeah.
inviting.
They say that on the night that he first tested it, it was visible all the way to Connecticut from Long Island, which is like about 100 miles.
That's amazing.
Oh,
It's
there's
amazing.
Mr.
There's
Tesla
Nikola.
there.
There's Mr.
Yes,
Tesla.
that came as a surprise. I turned the corner, and as so often happens with NPCs or models, you think, oh, I thought I
Because
was still
that's really
being.
the challenge, isn't it? To get things that are informative but also entertaining.
Yeah,
Because different people coming on the sim have different expectations, and that's not an easy balance to reach.
That's
But
well, there's a very famous. It's on the wall. There's a very famous picture of him sitting there doing that in that
it's
particular
fantastic.
room. So we wanted to replicate, see what that would have been like in color in life, because obviously the original picture is black and white. But we spent a lot of time trying to configure all those pieces to look exactly. Oh, there's the picture on the wall there. There he is sitting in
yeah.
a chair.
Brilliant.
So we
Oh,
tried
that's
to
The
even more
make
lightning
all the
scary in the
models.
picture. Good
Yeah,
grief.
I know. Can you imagine sitting there? That would have been a lot of fun.
No, I would be in Connecticut
I,
when that
I,
happened.
yeah, I find it hard difficult to actually concentrate on the reading while that thing was going off. But
I would
uh,
escape. Yeah, amazing. So how
As
long would a build like this take to build, would you say? Because obviously you begin with a discussion that somebody comes up, I would like to do this. And so you said you were talking about it being collaborative. So do you take your time over a build like this, or is it something that comes together in just a few weeks?
Oh, it's a couple weeks. Well, it usually starts with one of us saying something like, hey, we will have we'll just be having a conversation hanging around. I guess we probably talked about Nikola Tesla or something, and I built it. I said, oh, well, let's throw a sim together, and we got a flat sim, and I built a tower, and that's where it started. And well, let's if we're going to do that, why don't we build Warden Cliff, and we'll do a museum. So, Cameron comes in usually and does the landscaping, terraforming, and then builds the structure, and then I run around and build all the little models and things, and we get with Dirk, and he scripts the things so they do what they're supposed to do, and then we go to Ash and go, hey, let's go through the tuning element. Do we have anything on here that we have had cases where we'll design something and it's a script that for some reason eats up all the sim region resources. So I'll say, what do we got here? What do you think? And we'll go through and fine tune everything, and then we end up with our region. But it's a couple 3 weeks, from beginning to end, I think,
It's
something like
brilliant.
this.
I love all the detail in terms of you found photographs of everything you built here almost to sort of put beside all the models.
Yeah, we in this case, there's not a ton of photographs actually that show the interior of the building. So we had a little bit of trouble because they're small shots, like the one where he was
Yeah.
sitting, and a wall here, a wall there, a doorway, exterior shot. So Cameron did her best to piece all that together to come up with what the building probably looked like in its entirety, originally.
I like the fact that you haven't made him look like David Bowie, and there aren't any top hats around like in the film The Illusionist.
No, no.
That's what I was. No, because some people would say, well, that's what must have happened. So, I appreciate the fact you've kept it informative on the truth basis. Very nice work.
Yeah, well, I know steampunk would have made it more fun for everybody, but it's, when we do things like this or the 9/11 memorial or any of our grid is broken into, I'd say it's broken into 2 sections generally. I mean, we have a huge amount of education type things or artistic things. We have, all the stuff that Mud Puddle Clean Slate does. He's got a lot of artistic stuff. In fact, Ashton's friend, Frankie, is working on Artbox, which is going to be
Yeah, Frankie
on
Rocket.
Littlefield.
Yes, wonderful.
So, so half of the grid is that, or maybe a little more than half. And as you know, the other half, we have a lifestyle portion to our grid that
Sure.
a lot of people come there for that. But a lot of people in Open Simulator aren't aware that everybody sees the lifestyle portion and goes, sex grid. Blah, blah, blah,
No,
blah.
that's
And
crazy
there's
to do that.
right. There's much
There's
more
so
to
much. You're so much
Littlefield.
more and then everybody's entitled to do what they like behind, in their own
Sure.
grid, behind
Yeah,
closed
and
doors.
it's yeah, and
Everyone's
it's
business.
never yeah, it's never. I mean, I've
It's not
gone to
trashy.
yeah, right. I mean, I've gone to the Open Simulator Community Conference, and they're like, "Oh, Littlefield, that's at Sex Grid." I'm like, "Look, guys,
No, my
you've
gosh, if they
you
do, that's
you know,"
terrible.
I said, "You've never been here, obviously,
But,
because
yeah,
it's much more than that." Now, granted,
absolutely.
it's a nice haven for people that are involved in that lifestyle. We've all been involved in it for a long time, so we treat it properly, and we don't allow people running around wild and carrying on and driving people nuts. Our grid's very we're a very structured, organization to our grid. I mean, when you ask for an account, we check people out to make sure that it's not one of the griefers that's running around destroying grids before we approve anybody, so it doesn't have an open approval. When we rent to people, we make sure that the people are people that are not going to try to run some kind of a weird pedophile thing or a casino or something crazy. So the community, and that's why the community is so strong. And that's why we've been around for 10 years. It's besides the fact that Ashton is probably the best developer out there that I've ever met. His design of our grid is unbelievable. He's done things to 9.2 that no other 9.2 grids have. And because he's just really superb at everything he does, from the security side,
Oh, I
database
love it.
structure, very,
I love
very
these
good.
quotes. I love these quotes, by the way, in this bit.
Oh yes, that was
Yeah,
Cameron.
there's
Yeah.
a whole load of them, and I'm just
hmm
stopping and watching each of them basically.
Yeah, Cameron did all that. Cameron is very good at the museum-ish and educational part of this. I mean, I build all the gadgets because that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
But Cameron is very good at the educational perspective of things.
He was so open sim, wasn't he? The things that he said, the
Yeah,
quotes that you found.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. One of the reasons we felt that belonged out there. I was surprised that nobody had really touched on. I don't get out a lot to other grids, but I go looking around to see who has things. And I mean, maybe people don't want to waste an entire region on something like this, but I mean, to us, that's what OpenSim's about for us, is to, create places that, it would be nice if we could actually in real life visit
Yeah.
Wardenclyffe. You can't because it doesn't exist anymore. But
That,
it
The
would be
the building
it would be
is
great.
there, but there's nothing in it anymore.
Right, right.
right.
So it would be great to have things like this to go visit if you could, so,
Yeah.
that's why we do it.
And
And,
it's one of the great benefits of simulations and stuff is bringing the past to life.
right, exactly. Yes.
Um, if it's not there anymore and can be done electronically, that's a real
And
boon.
this is my favorite quote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Great
That's what I
one.
mean. I just hammered around to try and get all these quotes on screen, racing around.
Not failed. I've discovered 10,000 ways that
Just
didn't work.
brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah. I think
But
it's a place of inspiration because anybody who is in OpenSim probably builds or attempts to build or script or do something, and we can all relate to these quotes. And it's a way to inspire people to go back home and try again. Maybe this time that mesh will come out the way you wanted it to, or that
Right.
script. So it's great, wonderful.
Exactly.
It's an asset to the whole community. I love it.
I mean, like I said, we're really lucky because, at least in our case, um, the team that we have assembled that runs this grid, again, not only are we very, very close, all of us, even in real life, each one has a very specific thing that where we really excel at. I mean, like I said, Dirk's scripting is fantastic, and he can script things to do whatever crazy idea I come up with. I go, hey, can we make it do this, this, and Dirk will beat on it and write the script for it. And Ashton has been great at any of the, like I said, any of the back end stuff, the stuff to make sure that we didn't create a region that is a lag bomb. All of our regions are on our own servers, so like we don't have any connected regions. They're all exactly the same. So we want the experience from region to region to region to be the same, as far as response time. So Ash has been good at that, and obviously Cameron is such an exceptional builder that, you know, her landscape, not only the buildings that she creates and the texture she uses, but things like you're seeing here, and the landscaping around everything she builds really adds to the builds that are on the grid, which is really nice. So we've really lucked out. We have a great admin team, and like I said, everybody that's on the admin team, each of us has something that we really excel in, that put together, you end up with like this. You end up with Wardenclyffe, or things like that.
Yeah, well, as you can see, I could spend an undue amount of time in this build.
You're welcome. You're welcome to come over anytime.
Yeah,
Mel.
That's the point, Mel.
Yes.
The longest bit of film of the lot turned out to be here.
Well, that's what we strive for. I'm glad that you felt that way about it, because, you know, when we build these things, you know, not only do we build them, and this is one of the things that was nice I found as a builder. When I build an SL, when I first built, I had grand ideas of, you know, I'll build these things that I like. Well, the problem with SL is when you're building an SL, you're building to sell something generally, or to somehow fund keeping your sim afloat. So I started building things and got, you know, people said, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this. And I started not building for myself, but building things that would be saleable. And I'm like, you know what, this is no good. But here I can build, you know, we can build it the way we want, and go to everybody and say, hey, you know, what would a person that was coming here like to see? And that's where Cameron came in with, you know, I said, well, I know that maybe they'd like to see examples of his work, you know, the remote control boat, you know, blah, 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 blah. And Cameron came up with the quotes and things. And we put like a gift shop in there. It's a joke, you know, with T-shirts and stuff. It was just to give it that museum-ish, you know, quality. But now when we build things, I can look around and go, hey, you know, how will this be perceived by other people? Will they, you know, how would a Tesla fan like coming in here? You know, and when people come to us, because we have people come to us a lot with Tesla 911 and say, that was incredible, thank you so much for building that. That's what we strive for. We really want, we really enjoy that. You know, makes it all worthwhile for us.
You just I thought, I mean, you mentioned something about Tesla family or something. Are you in touch with, do you have descendants? Well, it's not that long.
No.
That are actually keen on it and have seen it.
Well, no. In fact, we probably would never. That caused a bit of a problem with the Falling Water building. I mentioned this to Thirza. In SL, there were a couple of people that built, you know, replicas or quasi replicas, and in most cases not very well, I might add.
Yeah, I got filled with a couple of them.
Yeah, they're not very good. And Cameron did a really exceptional job on hers. Well, one of the guys was selling a copy of Falling Water on Marketplace and contacted the Frank Lloyd Wright people in real life and said, hey, look what I'm selling. And they got upset because A, the quality was terrible, and B, they weren't getting any money off it and didn't give permission.
Yeah, exactly. So, you pinched our house.
Right. So, you know, it caused a cease and desist from, you know, Linden Labs for anything that was related to Frank Lloyd Wright. And it's a shame because there was a Frank Lloyd Wright museum that, you know, people were doing art glass and different things.
Yeah, there was some really lovely stuff. That's true.
Yes. Yeah, and it all got shut down because somebody contacted somebody out there. So what we did was we created Mill Run. Is it Falling Water? Sure. But we call it Mill Run, so it's in the style of quote unquote Frank Lloyd Wright.
Plus, it has a different kitchen, so
exactly. Right. So,
Andy, what about the bathroom? I got caught on that one.
Yeah, I mean, we're a non-commercial grid anyway.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't matter either way. But just we try not to draw attention to anybody who might see some value in making money on this somehow, because that's not what we're here for. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking of it in terms of licensing or anything like that. I was thinking of it like a historical thing where a former spouse or descendant or stuff actually wants to be involved. They want to contribute to the memory.
You would think.
I mean, I remember when George Orwell died, for example. I forget when it was, but his wife, Sonia, was, she was around not a few, well, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, but she was constantly, doing stuff, for free, as it were, just to keep
That's
her
actually
husband's name and vision going.
that's very unusual, actually.
Yeah,
Most times, I mean, when you're 2-3 generations down, a lot of the children, of the person in question, or great grandchildren,
yeah,
they see it as a money making proposition.
yeah,
Yeah, it gets a
Because
bit mercenary, doesn't it? Because
right,
it's their
exactly.
inheritance in their view.
Exactly. They see, something that they could make money off of, because they weren't there to see their great grandfather work and slave to do whatever that is. So to them, it doesn't hold the same, it doesn't have the same effect as the person that actually did it. So where Tesla, I mean, in fact, if his family did try to capitalize on it, that would be amusing, because Tesla wanted to give everything away all the time. I mean,
yeah.
so, he gave all his work away to Westinghouse. In fact, when Westinghouse, I don't know if you know the story, but he was
I
working.
saw the film, isn't there? There's a
Yes.
film about the current wars or something. Yeah,
Yes, during the current wars. Well, he had he owned all the patents to AC and the AC generators when they went to bid the job to do the Niagara Falls plant, and they couldn't get the money together to do the plant because nobody would invest in it, because Tesla owned all the patents. And Westinghouse told him, and he said, "You know what? Here." And he tore the patents up, and he said, "Go ahead, take it. Do what you want,"
yeah,
because that's the kind of person he was, which is one of the reasons I like Tesla. Um, but I think I would suspect, if you found a relative of his and said, "Hey, this is what we're doing," they would want to find
yeah.
money angle
They
in it.
just,
Hmm.
yeah. It's a shame,
It
because
is. It is. It's unfortunate.
people do run museums and charge for entry and things like that, but
Sure.
the essence of a museum traditionally has been a homage either to an era, to things, or to an individual. There's a commercial element that allows the tribute to exist, as it were. But there's a point where, I suppose, traditionally, the when an artist is dead, he doesn't need a living, so
Sure.
his
I
work
mean,
goes open source. But now, copyright and things like that is just so perpetually renewed that the more acclaim it gets, the more expensive it gets.
well, sure. And,
Um,
obviously there's a cost to doing business with anything. I mean, nothing's free. So I
right.
understand if they have a building to support or whatever, you have a donation box out there. That I understand. Frank Lloyd Wright, we are very disappointed in how that went. And I almost understand how they came to that conclusion. Because this person was making money off of their family or their company's idea, and they
Yeah.
weren't getting any money out of that. So that was just wrong on on every single level. So
It
we
happened a lot
you know
in the early days of Second Life, didn't it? Where creators, or we call them creators anyway, um, they thought they were at liberty to, I don't know, make an avatar that looked like Spider-Man,
right.
or mimic something, and really, did not pay any attention to the fact they had character properties that were, trademarked. And,
Sure. I
but
mean,
But that
then they
wasn't.
wonder why they're told to take it down, because somebody, probably
Right.
innocently enough, tells Marvel Comics, "Hey, Spider-Man's in Second Life," and they say, "No, he done well, isn't he?"
Yeah, it's not a.
Nobody licensed it.
It's not really a problem, at least with the U.S. copyright law, until there's actual money that's exchanged. And
Yeah,
so before there was a par value for the Second Life Linden dollar, it was probably okay, from a
yeah,
legal standpoint. But when you get to the point where you can sell it for Linden dollars, which are directly transferable to U.S. dollars or British
sure,
pounds or euros or whatever, then it gets on the naughty side of the law.
yeah,
Right.
I think with the Tesla exhibit, for example, or our Falling Water exhibit, uh, that's clearly fair use and a tribute, like you were saying. It's an homage to uh, a publicly known pieces of work.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what we try to do anyway. And
Mhm.
again, like I said, I mean, we are We have no money system. We never will. We've it was our intent when we first came to Open Simulator. We left a highly commercial environment, leaving Linden Labs and SL. Why recreate that here? I mean, if you want that and making money is your goal, go to SL. That's just how we feel about the whole thing. I'm not saying that everything should be free. I mean, we do rent regions very reasonably, so we can support the servers, and we only do that, to get another server to support the more people as the community grows. But overall, we never saw any reason to sell things or what have you. I'm not saying content creators. Content doesn't have any value, but the way our community works, again, everybody seems to work together. They all, somebody contributes this piece, somebody else contributes script to it or a texture or whatever, and it's free for the whole community. And that's what the software is free. Open Simulators is developed by a bunch of people doing this in their spare time for free, and they support it. The viewer's free. So let's not commercialize the the free thing that everybody's put their
That's right,
heart
because we
and
can
soul
all
into.
give something back, can't we? That's the
Right,
beautiful
exactly.
thing. We're all
Yes,
contributing, and that's the beautiful thing.
exactly.
I think Mal wanted to talk about the year in review as well, didn't
Oh,
you,
yes,
Mal?
yes.
Oh yeah, sure. I've actually muted the sound on this next clip, but it's because it's in Italian, I think. Not sure whether Thirza recognises it. I thought we could actually talk over this one. It's the Museum of the Metaverse People, Rosanna
Oh,
Galbini,
right, yeah.
and she literally put this film up. I think it was just a couple of days ago. So I thought, well, that's our cup of tea, even if we can't understand it.
Yeah, talking about people doing things and contributing to the general wealth of culture that there is in OpenSim. Of course, the Museo del Metaverso started out in Second Life, but exactly the same as you guys. Just found that it was just so expensive in Second Life, and you could do so much more with the same money or even less money in OpenSim. And so, of course, they're over on Craft Grid and have been for many years. So it just shows the same model works wherever you are in the world, and whatever your major interest is. Obviously, their thing is art and performance.
Yes.
So this is a bit of a display of what they've done, and they're trying to do more and more things. They have a wonderful yearly event talking about violence, domestic violence,
Yeah.
and raising awareness for that. But many other things that are related to Italian culture and world culture, and trying to involve always more people and bringing quite a lot of performers in from who do most of their work in Second Life. So giving them an idea of what goes on in OpenSim and what's possible, and getting pretty good audiences too, which obviously is the first thing people worry about. Is, if I leave Second Life, there won't be anybody, nobody will come to my show. But instead, they have maybe 30 people show up,
I wish
and very little
I
lag. So
wish the people who said that actually took one moment to pause and remember the first day they were in Second Life. How many friends did they have? Did they know how to fly or walk or whatever? It.
Yeah,
They
you're
didn't
right.
have any
Well,
friends then. It's just,
we hear that same thing a lot with people. With if I leave, how many people are going to be there? And I've said to people, particularly the way Second Life has gone recently, the people in Second Life in the community is not what it used to be.
yeah,
And I said, look, if you generally have 30 to 40 people that you are friends with at any given time that you hang around with, bring them with you. Bring those 30 people. You don't need to bring 2,000 people with you, because you're not hanging
yeah,
around with 2,000 people.
yeah.
Um, and Craft, it's funny you mentioned Craft. There's another grid that's been around. They've been around since the very beginning.
yes,
You
yes,
know,
they have. Yeah.
and I always
Yeah,
appreciate
always
the
had great
fact.
stuff. Yeah.
Yes,
And very reliable grid too. Liku
yes,
is just spot on with the reliability.
exactly.
I think he's a lot like Ashton, that he cares. It's the people. He does it for the people, and
Yes,
it's easy in a way when you kind of back end doing things. You can worry about performance just in terms of performance, but what you really counts is when you worry about the residents and you're thinking
Exactly.
about their experience. I
It's
loved
the
what
user
Ashley said earlier.
experience. Right,
Yes,
exactly.
it
You
was
know,
so beautiful
that's
what
the
you
thing.
said before, worrying about
Oh,
their memories.
Yeah,
I thought that was
exactly.
lovely.
Yeah, well, Ash has
yeah.
always been very, very big on that. That was the core for us. Is that we made sure everybody's stuff is protected. I know how valuable stuff is to people. I have things that I've built that I would be very upset if I didn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
And Ash and I are very, very, very careful. This is why we had our residents. We God bless them. They were very patient about us going to 9.2. But I said, listen, look at what has happened to other grids that have gone to 9. Okay, you know, they lost their inventory, database crash, blah blah blah. We don't want that.
Hmm.
We need to spend
Wow.
6-9 months making sure, and we actually bought extra servers to do the migration. So 8.2 ran in the background while we were migrating to 9.2 to make sure nothing got lost. And to make sure the transition was smooth. We wanted people to move to 9.2 and not only would they have the exact same experience, but to have a way better experience because they went to 9.2. And that's how Ash always behaves. We all do. We're all very conscious of our users and make sure that it's their home. We live here. We all have homes on our grid, so we expect to do the same for them. We want them to, when a user comes to us, it goes, "Wow, I love it here. I feel like home." For us, that's it. We accomplished what we wanted. So,
Hmm.
and Craft, it's interesting to note. Craft being around a long time, Littlefield's been around a long time. OS Grid, the non-commercial grids are the ones that seem to
They're the ones
stay.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
You know,
true.
and
But
Yes.
they
the
they don't
commercial
have the
ones.
model. They don't have the
Yeah,
commercial model that they need to depend on to survive. They've got a
exactly.
community or they've got devotion to a topic.
Exactly, and that's really, to me, that's a lot of what the core of OpenSim is.
Mm.
I see a lot of grids out there that glow bits and all these currencies and whatnot, and when your grid has to rely on income in order to stay, then you're like SL.
Yeah.
So for me, the grids that are non-commercial that are up because of the community, that's really where it's at. And
I
That's
always
true.
there's, you
think
know,
I always have this thing about sort of everything in the end. Sort of people tend to become tribal, and you look at somewhere like Second Life. I mean, it is a vast place and commercial, of course, but people kind of form the tribes there. And sometimes it's a small group of friends, sometimes it's a whole like role play or a community or a devotee of a particular subject. And the number of instances where I've found people in OpenSim, right, who
mhm,
are here because their whole tribe has moved across.
right.
Unlike the individual person who says I've got no friends or whatever, they actually think, well, look, we've got this whole community. We've got 4 simulators in Second Life. It's costing us a fortune. Let's move to Open Simulator because we don't really care about the rest of Second Life.
Well, right. I will say, I mean, the only caveat to that whole thing, and as much as I like that Open Simulator is so open that people can run it on a laptop, they run a grid on a laptop. What happens is, um, and our lifestyle of our community is a perfect example of this. There are probably 20 or 30 what we call laptop grids out there that have,
Yeah.
5 users, 5 users, 5 users, 5 users. So there's no community because they don't know how to get around. They don't get around. They don't know that there's a larger community. And instead of having one strong community on a few large grids, everybody has been told all these years, just throw a grid up. So they throw a grid up, they have their house or whatever the case may be, but they're not familiar with other than programs like yours, Hypergrid Business, OpenSim World.
Yeah.
They don't know where things are going on,
Yeah.
and they don't know what's out
Very
there,
true.
and it kind of breaks things apart. That's the one thing SL does have going for it,
I think
where
that's one thing
it's
that,
centralized.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
something Thirza and I think, are both trying to do is how to get the outreach about OpenSim and its possibilities out to people.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
it's difficult
and
because the community is fragmented like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, But you have a
thank
show
you
like
for
this
doing
or
what you're doing.
conference.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Conference oh, God, that started. How did that start? Sorry, I don't know how that started. Okay, I'm a bit conscious of time here, so we'll sort of continue talking away. I'm just going to run a quick film about a region called Khione, Khione. It's just a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to move back to chatting with Thirza about the year gone by, and we've got some pictures to talk to and stuff. But obviously, as we're doing that, so if you have some comments, butt it into what we're talking about as well. First of all,
Please
I'm just going to run this region, Khione. Yeah, good old waltz or something going on there. You've got 1 day left, technically, but you know what? As good
No, I
as
think he was talking about leaving it open a little longer, but I think
I have a feeling it
it
might.
may
Yeah.
have played out. Yeah.
It's
So
funny.
this is the so
Carry
this
on.
is the region that Arj Marsh and Nani Ferguson made, which they do every year. And again, they've been doing this for at least 8 years. The various hunt builds, they don't last very long. They're up for about a week or so usually, and they spend months getting them ready. And it's the same thing they were kind of doing back in the day in Second Life, but on a much smaller scale in the Paris 1900 build. But this way, they each season as it comes up, they make a hunt build so you can go and get some prizes. And Arsh is a guy who makes mesh and finds mesh and modifies mesh. So he's the one who comes up with all the scripting and the sort of the content, and then Nani, she's the one that has the overall idea and comes up with the concept and lays out all the pieces, and then Aj has to figure out how to script it to make it work. I think that may sound familiar to Dirk.
Yes.
Oh yes.
So this obviously is their Christmas build. The last one, the one before this was the Halloween build, which was a zombie thing, and it was so difficult. But we did get to the end. This one's a lot easier. There's a lot of mice, or mouses, as the poster said, which is great.
Yeah, very great stuff. Right.
Again, it's interesting that whole ephemeral thing that comes and it goes, but there's the love of building that goes on, and the love of sharing too.
Now, one thing has just occurred to me. He's not actually sitting beside me on the sofa this week, but he is still here, filling with the novice, as we say. I hate anybody to think that James has left us. So, hello, James.
Well, hello, Mal. How are you?
I'm fine.
I'm
How does it feel? How does it feel to be in the seats?
I'm totally relaxed. This is really comfy. I might want to stay here more. But I've got my wonderful hat from Thirza, and so
Wonderful.
I'll have to
Can
show that.
Can you cam in on yourself to
Yeah,
show
look
us
at
you're
that.
here with a little bit of wiggling, and it's a hat with a knob on.
Yep.
Wonder how that came about.
How did that happen?
How
That's
did that happen?
wonderful.
We ask.
Yeah, thank you, Thirza. That's really nice.
Nice to get a present, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, I just thought, I always ask you at this point when we got guests and things if you had any sort of questions, given the conversation that arose when any questions.
No
thought-
questions, just admiration for just beautiful builds. I also am a fan of Nikola Tesla, and it's
right.
great
Yeah.
to see that tribute put together.
It is, yeah, very much so. I might even try and do more filming there at some point, although I think I've got most of it in. Okay, well, just to make sure that you knew, folks, James is still here. He hasn't gone anywhere. Happy New Year. And Happy New Year to all of you, by the way. Come on.
Yeah.
Yes,
Happy
happy
Happy New Year, everybody.
Last night I was watching, we have a program with a pianist, a commentator called Jules Halland here in the UK. It's called the Hoot Nanny. And, so every so often he wants people to scream, so he flaps his hands and goes, "Who's Nanny?" And then everybody joins in. So I want you to all join in with me and say, "Happy New Year." Oh,
Yeah.
that wasn't very good, was it? Okay. So much for trying to be a live program.
I think we need a lead in. Yeah.
We were all doing it inside, Mal. You couldn't tell, but we were all doing it within our deepest souls. We were
Absolutely.
joining in.
I believe you. I believe you.
This is
Right.
probably the best place for it.
So let me see. I forget when we were. What was the date we were last on there? It was about the 8th.
Ooh,
It was about
I'm
the
going to say the 30th.
Yeah.
18th of December, I think it was. So these ones are. I'm just getting myself up to speed here. Yeah, we certainly don't need the Open Simulator agenda anymore, do we? So I think the of your Friday, December 2nd. Oh, hang on, no. I think I've got too many things here. I forgot to bin. December 15th.
No, that's still not it. No,
Okay.
still not it.
Yeah, well, I'll go to the top where the two latest ones
Almost.
are. And right, a quick note from Hypergrid Business. They had a blog here commenting on it. VVOT's voice replacements have been delayed by funding and OpenSim integration issues. This was David Kariuka, whatever, on December 21st. So that is kind of relevant. You'll find that at hypergridbusiness.com. HYPERGRIDBUSI.
I read that article. It says that your headphones will go green if you read it.
Right, okay.
That's the message there.
So click through, folks, and read it and go green. It can't hurt. It doesn't hurt to go green.
No, you're still not there.
There's the mouse. Oh, this we are. It's the Keown thing again. Use the HUD to find the next place to go. Okay, well, we saw that. We saw that in. We just saw that in the clip now, anyway, didn't we? So, okay, so we've got two real posts from you here. Well, one is called the Safari Year, and the other one's called Tata. Or actually, Tata 22. We've got a ring to it, hasn't it? So
Yeah, let's look at that. This is kind of long, though. All the things we did on the safari.
Yeah,
Should we just
well,
look at the
that's-
year? Is that okay?
yeah, sure. Right, okay. So the Tata 22 one, yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
So
right.
lots of things happened this year.
Yeah. Oh, that's a bit of a small picture.
So I wonder if you guys have any additions to the list. I'd be interested to know things that happened that you noticed. This article talks about how Fred's Dream Grid thing is growing and growing. He's got 7,000 people have downloaded it so far. I take on board what you say, Walter, about bigger grids being more community friendly. That's very true. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people out there who are just better off on their own, if you know what I mean.
Well,
They end up fighting.
Well, the problem with that too is people are taking Fred's Dream Grid and putting it together on a PC somewhere, and then renting regions to people and perpetrating the hoax that they're running a grid, and that's happened quite a bit. I see grids go up every day, and Ashton and I talk about this all the time. These grids come up and they're like, "Hey, everybody, come rent here, and we got glow bits and blah blah blah." They're running it on their PC at home with a Dream Grid. And people don't know this that rent from them. And
Right.
it's irresponsible, and it gives Open Simulator a bad name. I mean, we had, if you looked at some of the turmoil that happened with like Great Canadian Grid back when that collapsed, and several grids that have, well, there are grids out there, several of them that have collapsed in that way, where the grid goes down, people lost their money, they lost their content. When you put people, there are certain people that should be in charge of a grid, and it's up to people to figure this out on their own. And there are people that really have no business running a grid because they just don't have the technical expertise or prowess to keep it functional, or morally they don't do things the way they should in protecting people's content or being aware that you have people's stuff that you're responsible for. The easier you make it for people to do something like this, the more grids you're going to see that are going to pop up like this, where, and I've just seen 2 or 3 recently that I won't mention that, hey, look, we just opened and we're renting and come over and get regions and blah, blah, blah. And they're running Dream Grid. and they're running it on a PC in their house. I mean, that's not good. I mean, it's just, and like I said, anything that puts a black eye on the OpenSim community is no good. I mean, you get people from SL that go, hey, this might be an opportunity for me. And they go out and they start reading things like, oh, I was on this grid, but they collapsed and I lost all my money. And people start seeing that kind of stuff. And OpenSim gets a black eye from that. And
That's true.
It's a shame. Plus, you get some of these people, their first experience might be, let's say they like, I don't know, flowers. And there's a grid that came up and their whole thing revolves around flowers. That's their whole grid. And they're running it on Dream Grid. And they're running it on some laptop in their house. The people go there and the response time is horrible. The lag is awful. The content is bad. And they go, oh, this is what Open Simulator is?
That's true.
I'm not leaving SL. So it's good if people, like, you want to run your own little house, you want to have 5 people, fine, great. But people are
it's not attractive to new people, or
No,
it can be deceptive.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
I agree.
And and I noticed that it's we're big fans of OS Grid. We've always supported OS Grid. We started there, but when you go to OS Grid, depending on where you land, because OS Grid allows people to connect their own PCs to the grid, you have people that turn their computer off, and all of a sudden their SIM's gone. And the people come in, they go, I can't TP here. I don't know what the hell's going on.
That's right.
Okay, I hate to interrupt here because this is great conversation, but we're not open-ended, and I'd love it if Thirza could actually tell us about the slideshow that's going on at the moment, which is it's the Tata 22 blog basically presented.
I think we've slipped back to the one that shows all the different places we went to on the safari, because this is the first few weeks of the year, the safari trips that we went on.
It's the we haven't slipped back. I don't think we have.
There we go. That's it.
This is the one we want.
Yes, now you're on the right one again.
Okay, I was right. Okay,
we talked about Fred. Yes.
There we are.
There we go. That's his Hobbiton builds, which have been a source of a little bit of contention, because some people were taking them and not realizing that they're supposed to be only used on Dream Grid.
Right. Yeah, he's very specific about that.
This was just a little roundup of all the things, and this comes back to what Walter was saying about doing things and having a community, because alternate metaverse grid this year's had a fabulous year of bringing in new people, and the grid has grown, and a lot of it has been to do with the way Cataplexia and Clifford and all their team have just had one big event after another, bringing in loads of people from other grids who have been attracted to the place and just feel like it's got a mix of entertainment and educational classes, and so there's a lot been going on over there this year. And this was just us messing about for Cornflakes Week. This build was made by Cherry. This is crazy.
This is just an animated GIF. It looks really intense and full of.
It does. It was a pretty intense day, I have to say.
Really a good one there, yeah.
And again, more Cherry Manga, who just builds crazy stuff. And this was this comes back again to what you guys were talking about before with grids coming to an end. Franco Grid, of course, died. You saw that, I'm sure, Dirk and Ashton and Cam and Walter. I wonder what you made of that when that went down.
Franco Grid. Well,
yeah.
It's always sad to see any of these grids go down. I was surprised to see what do you call it? The German grid, Metropolis, go down. I mean, they had been around forever, and we knew they were starting to go. I mean, you could see the handwriting on the wall; they were starting to go downhill. But and that again was a financial problem. But
financial, but also the guy who's running it, because that's where we were located before, and his life has just taken a different turn. He just doesn't have time to dedicate to it. So
Well, that's why you need to have 5 or 6 grid admins.
And this is this guy that you're looking at now. This is Vladimir Janovich,
Yes.
who had a grid, Virtual Dreams grid, the
Virtual Dream
unfortunately
Grid.
VD grid, unfortunate name, but it's a French grid, so they have no concept of that. He is a very community-minded guy. But again, just overnight disappeared, and a lot of refugees from Franco Grid had gone to his grid, and then just
Yeah.
found themselves without a home, pretty
Well,
much
yeah,
overnight.
and it's one of the things that, like you mentioned with Metropolis. I mean, we have 6 grid admins. Okay, so if something tragic happened to me or Ashton or one of us, the grid can still maintain. It's not like, oh my God, the only person that knew how anything worked is gone and the grid
That's
falls
it.
apart. You can't. There's a lot of grids out there that fall into that category, and
Well, again, we're looking at Third Life Grid now. That the
yeah,
same
right.
thing. It was a personally owned grid which had a nice little community of people, but
They had a huge community. Yeah.
life situations change, and
Yeah.
the grid's gone.
3RG. Yeah, and it's a shame because they had a very large community. And I
Yeah.
remember I remember when that went down. Now we've actually got a couple people from 3RG and I believe we have one from Franco. But one of the things we won't do is I see a lot of people out there who will remain nameless that immediately when a grid goes down, hey everybody, come to my grid, blah blah blah, and that's
Well,
poor.
yeah,
That's
that's
really
right.
really poor. It's in bad taste, and
It's a bit of a vulture mentality.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly,
This
and
is
that's
what
sad.
Metropolis Grid, another one.
Yeah, there's
Yes,
Metropolis.
this is a big party because when I heard that the Metropolis was closing, I said, "So what are we going to? Is nothing going to happen?" And it turned out nobody had organised anything. So I was able to get hold of Niovo, who had been the admin, who literally was the only person you could get hold of who had any kind of control over what was left of the grid, even though he's not an owner of any kind. So he was able to change the stream for us, and we got Lady Jo to come and do some DJing for us, and the party went
Oh,
on
that's
and on
nice.
and on.
Oh,
It was a
nice.
fantastic evening. I think it was about 50 people showed up altogether.
Yeah, I remember being there for
So
a
all to
while.
say goodbye to Metropolis.
Yeah, I don't think I was able to stay for the whole thing, but
No.
I don't. I
even
wonder.
though they were European,
I
But
wonder
then
where
the
all
other,
these. I wonder where all these people went. I mean, this Metropolis was a
they'll
gigantic
be
grid.
around. Yeah, they'll be
Where
around.
they went, they all went to very small grids, and there's probably maybe 15 to 20 German-speaking grids
Oh, I see.
now.
Okay.
And the fact is that they used to fight so much on Metropolis. It
Did
was
they really?
always
I
fight.
don't
Oh
know,
my God!
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
it
yeah.
was just
I
drama
think
central.
this next picture is an actual person we lost, which is Torben Asp, if I'm not correct.
Yes, and here's a sad story. Yes, of course, Torben Asp, who died earlier this year after a very long battle with ill health. So we lost him. He's famous, of course, for particle shows. I think that's the next slide.
Particle shows and
And of course, his music, his trance music.
But I think, although it's a long while ago, we think Better Times, we actually had him on the show, but I'd have to dig out and find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of his particle things, I presume, isn't it? Well, it's the next slide anyway. So
Yes, and again, somebody who was seamlessly traveled between OpenSim and Second Life. And when you're working with particles, that's no mean feat.
No.
Yeah. His particle engines were legendary.
Yeah.
And he was just such a nice man. Here's another really nice man who died this year. This is Rudy Backerley, who, of course, was one of the chief people in SoulGrid. It comes exactly back to what Walter was saying. SoulGrid is by no means over just because he's no longer with us. The grid is continuing to move along and is in good shape. And he's actually on the sim that they created, which has portals to take you to other grids. Anybody who wanted to put a portal, it's a sort of hypergrid station, which used to be, people had a lot of those back in the day, but it kind of fell out of fashion. And he wanted to revive it because he's a great believer in.
It's a great idea. Well, we did that when we started our grid. We have a train station with portals,
Nice.
but unfortunately, and actually, I think we have a portal at Seoul because I was in contact with somebody from Seoul just recently because they
Mhm.
seem to have the same type of mindset we did as where that was concerned. And the problem is a lot of these grids have a fear of somebody taking their
Yeah.
users from them. So then they don't want anybody traveling anywhere, and they don't want to promote anybody else's stuff, and it's very bad for the community. I mean, and I've said to people before, I'm like, look, if you come to my grid and you go somewhere else and you like what you saw somewhere else and you want to leave,
Uh,
by all means. I mean, we want people here that like it here and know what we have for them. If you have,
Exactly.
be where you're happy. We don't want unhappy people on our grid. We want
This
people
is,
that love
am I
where they're
right in
at.
thinking this is Veritas again, isn't it? So,
Veritas.
Yes, yeah,
done
that's
enough
right.
with
It was exactly a
Met-
poster child from what you were saying about people trying out all different grids. She had many
Yes.
different
Yeah, she had an avatar. I
avatars for
have
different places.
I have 5 different Veritases as friends in my friends, and it
Oh,
was weird because I didn't know what had happened until after Christmas, and all of a sudden she was no longer lit on my friends list. I mean, her names were there, but she was always on. And I'm like, I wonder where Veritas is. I haven't seen her in several days. And then I got word from, I think it was either Nix or Roy on our grid, told me about it. And I was very surprised. It's shocking when somebody that you interact with day to day in the virtual world something happens like this.
okay, we need to move on a bit here, so get to all this.
Oh yes, just going back again to Craft Grid, how much has been going on this year. The ebook library was one of the many things they did this year.
Very pretty. This was carnival time, I
And
guess.
this is down at Wildwood. Of course, they had the big carnival, which was just beautiful.
This was, I don't know where this was.
And another thing, this was over on DigiWorlds, and I think a lot of grids do this. This was an art walk, but again, very much focused on DigiWorlds rather than a hypergrid kind of situation. But it was amazing, the art that was on display, because they just encouraged everybody who had a sim to show their artwork. And there's photos, and there's some of real world stuff, some virtual and drawings. Just it's always amazing to find out the talent that is behind the avatar. So it was a great show. And they were talking about talent. Laura, Destiny, she organised, which you probably heard about, a big fashion show because she got tired of people saying, oh, all the clothes in OpenSim, they're all stolen from Second Life, and it's just disgusting. And so what she did was she got 8 people who, mostly Germans, who make mesh clothes in OpenSim. And she did a big old-fashioned show, and this was in the after party. That's her right there, looking relieved that everything went well. So that was another big event this year. And over on Pangaea, they had the big art and culture festival. Again, a big mixture of people coming in, very little tribal atmosphere because you have people coming from all different grids, having a sim, doing a few performances. And this was one of the first ones, Tara Merriam, who is big in Second Life, but is now more and more in OpenSim because she gets 50 people to come to her performances. So, why would you need to be in Second Life when you can have 50 people in OpenSim and no lag? So
Right.
it's brilliant.
And
this was OpenSim Fest, I think.
Yeah, OpenSim Fat. Yes,
I'm
it
looking at the
was.
curvature of the horizon here, and it's
Yeah.
puzzling me for a second, but now I've figured it out. Yeah.
That was a nice event.
Yeah.
I DJ'd a couple
Yes.
nights there. It was a very nice event.
A lot of work, very hot.
Liberties.
Oh, and here's Dan Pretty Boy banner standing outside the poster of the big OS Grid birthday party. Of course, they're at the oldest grid, 15 years, can't complain. And this is when they did the auction, which I think they got like $2,000 or something in the end.
The auction was
And that's when I discovered that you can give lindens to them if you're in Second Life and you want to make a donation and you just think, well, just let me give some lindens. You can go over to their region. They got a parcel and just make a donation there if you don't want to do it with the real money.
yeah. Well, Linda's ain't real money. Don't know. Oh, now that looks a bit familiar.
And I don't know what this is.
Absolutely not.
Oh, come on.
Unlikely.
Come on, says James.
Mm.
Yes, it was, of course, the OpenSim Community Conference, which was obviously empty when this was taken.
No, there's nobody to gossip with.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
And this is the last picture.
I love this place. Yes, this
That's my favourite part. This gift comes from we always try on the safari to go to a different grid every week, but some places are just irresistible. And there's a Canadian grid, Carnival, which is run by Kelso and Davichi, and they change the seasons with the years. So you have such a sense of what it must be like to live in Canada when you go to their grid. They're part of Canada. Is towards Quebec, and this is one of the many things that Kelso has scripted. It was just a delightful place, and just always worth going back. So that's how we ended the year.
Ooh, what's all that about?
Oh yes.
Oh, something happened there. Okay, there we are. I'm going to say quickly through these because, as you said, we're at the end, but these are additional bits to round up the year. And I'm flicking through them quickly, so we're only getting a minute or more.
Yeah, it always makes me laugh. You read. I guess you on Littlefield. How many people would you say you have when you have a gathering? Is it sort of 20, 30 people?
About 30. Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
If we have a big like the Christmas, we just had Christmas events and a New Year's Eve party, and we generally get around 30 people or so.
And then you have people say, "Oh, there's only like 200 people in OpenSim." And you're like, "Well, hold on a minute. There's 20 people at my thing, and there's
Right.
20 people at your thing."
Well,
Well,
Am I right?
Yeah.
I can tell you that recently we just passed having 14,000 unique avatars come to Littlefield.
Wow.
Wow.
So there's a lot of
Wow.
avatars out there. I mean, now granted, everybody's annulled, I guess, but you know that struck me as quite a few.
That's an amazing
Well,
a piece of
what I
data.
s-
That's great.
My argument with people in SL all the time is they're like, well, there's not that many people in OpenSim. I'm like, well, we're standing on a sim right now with 3 people on it here in SL.
Not for the
I can take you anywhere and in OS there'll be more than 3 people. So, that doesn't necessarily hold true. I mean, granted, you can get into places where there'll be a lot of people all the time hanging around, which you don't see a lot in OpenSim. But I think the community
Well,
is
there's a lot of
quite
people in
large here.
Times. There's a lot of people in Times Square. Doesn't mean you want to necessarily pass your time
Right.
with them all, do you?
Exactly. Yes, that's a good.
Brilliant.
That's actually good. I'm gonna remember that. That's a good one.
And that I always think of OpenSim as more. It's more like if you went west. You go west, the city's progressively less big, but that doesn't mean there aren't people there doing things with their farms, with their mines or whatever they may be doing. The people are busy. They might not have a lot of time just to be standing around talking all the time.
Sure.
But they're there and they're making fantastic things. And there's so many ways you can find out about it now. I mean, OpenSim World.
Sure.
You can watch this show, for example. There are many people blogging about what they've seen in OpenSim or putting up photos. So, there's really no excuse not to go out and find out what's there. Or just stay home on a grid like yours and enjoy what you have there.
Right.
That's an excellent
Yeah,
thing to do.
OpenSim, the grids where you can do anything
Sure.
instead of just shopping.
Well, you can actually do more. Well, we can actually do more. I mean, one of our
True.
grid admins who we haven't really announced it because we don't know it for a fact was Anya Koami, and her regions still exist and will always exist in Littlefield. But she, as you know, she's the person who invented PMAC, and every dance ball that you see on every grid was designed by Anya. our suspicion is that she passed away several years ago. I was in contact with her daughter, and she, right before the pandemic, had a severe stroke and was in pretty bad shape, and she was already battling cancer. So we haven't heard from her or her daughter in a couple of years. So I'm hesitant to put anything public out that she passed away, but we figured she probably has. But look at the legacy she left behind. I mean, she left behind,
Absolutely.
something that I go to, when I go from grid to grid, every grid I go on has her dance ball. Every single grid.
Absolutely.
And it's a phenomenal piece, and it's better than any dance ball in SL, which is what my point was. What we can do with NPCs and what they do with PMAC
And it's
stuff
free,
is-
and you
yes.
can modify it, and
Yes,
you don't have to worry
exactly.
about somebody bothering you.
It's amazing. I mean, yeah, and I tell people in SL all the time, like, oh my God, I have to recreate my inventory. I'm like, it's free pretty much. If you just
Exactly.
look around, you can get everything that you need. So it's not that hard.
And people
Spend
will
2
give you
days out
stuff.
shopping.
Exactly. Oh, and people will say, if you say, "Oh, I haven't got this, I haven't got," they'll either tell you where you can find it, or maybe they'll just give you it. They
Give
have
it
it
to
in
you.
their
Yes.
inventory. So
It happens to me if I go to a grid and I see a car or something, I ask the person if I'm into dance. I'm like, hey, where'd you get that? Oh, here, and they just hand it to you. I mean, it's wonderful.
right.
It's really nice.
This is the thing that SL has been phenomenally good about, and that is retaining their users. When you try and get someone to come to OS, they're always saying, "Oh, but I have all this inventory that I don't want to leave behind." And I can't impress on them the idea that just because you come to OS doesn't mean you have to leave SL. It's
Yeah,
still
yeah,
going to
that's
be
true.
there. Anytime you want to go back, it's going to be there. You don't have to choose.
I mean, I'm sure I go back very rarely unless I got to go to a meeting or film something. But I'm sure that the vast majority of people who we know well and know by name in OpenSim, pop into Second Life, a few times a week even because they know people there or they just want to go in especially for one event. I mean, the whole idea originally of a metaverse would be an interconnected worlds. We have it with the hypergrid, but we can't hyper jump into Second Life or something. But it's
They'll never let that happen.
No, that's
I,
not
I go occasionally out of what I call morbid curiosity because I want to see the state of affairs there.
you would have to the technical difficulties would have to get really bad, and they'd have to actually start losing a lot of people before they consider stuff.
I
But
think the
I
problem
mean,
is nobody wants to be a new boy. Nobody wants to be the new
Right.
boy that doesn't know quite how things work. And although it's
Yeah.
similar, it's not the same. And so
Yeah.
that's really why we started doing these safari trips. So the idea was, things are going to go wrong, and they're going to go wrong for me just like for you. So don't be embarrassed. We'll
Yeah.
just laugh and
Exactly.
we'll make it happen. We'll hold your hand and lead you through the hypergridding experience. The amount of times we had to go back and get somebody who crashed.
Yeah.
Ruining your event. No, the event is all about that and teaching you how to do it. And after you've learned to do it, you can go and help somebody
Yeah.
else do it.
But
So
that's-
where's
This is
my hair?
Safari.
Where's my hair?
That's the spirit.
How many times have I said I envy the newbies because I remember the wonder of when it was all new.
Oh yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Spirit of discovery.
No, I don't know.
yeah.
It's a lady. I don't think
It's
that's
a once
true.
in a lifetime thing, isn't it? It's like when I was young.
I know. I often say to Cameron taught me almost everything I know about building, and because I couldn't res a prim cube when I started, and I'm sorry now that I know how to build because I see mismatched textures or something that's out of
Yeah.
line or whatever, and it like freaks me out. I'm like, oh, that would be so easy to fix, and I can't edit it and fix it. Like I was better off when I did not know how to fix that or how to build that. But it's as Dirk was saying. I mean, I go back to SL myself once in a while, but Dirk, one of Dirk's comments about SL one time to me, and this is what I use for people a lot, is when we came here, one of the reasons we didn't do a finance system was he calls SL second job, and that's not inaccurate. I mean, a lot of people there don't want to put their own money into SL, but need the money, so they work jobs in SL.
Yeah.
to make money to buy stuff for their avatar. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this defeats the
sure.
purpose of relaxing and being in a virtual world when you
It's
got to
true. So
have
many
a
people
job
told me
in
the
world.
same. It's become a
Yeah.
job, and they can't
Yes.
not go into they
That's
can't not go into Second Life because somebody's counting on them, and they're, well, I might as
Right.
well be in the office then.
yeah.
Exactly. Right. You know.
Yeah, I always hate it when, I sort of get hobbies and, or enthused about something, and then suddenly, I just have to give it up because it becomes like work. I mean, there's
Right.
stuff
Right.
that is work that you don't ever want to give up because you enjoy it so much. But, if it's both, fine. But you're right. There's a certain stress factor about Second Life that I can't really put my finger on, but I always feel a bit stressed in there.
Yes. I
Whereas in
agree.
OpenSim, I just flip around,
Yeah. No. OpenSim is very casual. It would be nice if people like you guys, what you're doing here, it'd be nice if the community could get together better. There's a lot of animosity between grids, and people are very protective over their particular content or stuff
Yeah.
or whatever, and it makes the community not as strong a community as it really should be, given the amount of people that are out here. It should be a lot stronger community than it is. And it's a shame that it isn't.
Yeah, I agree up to a certain point. I find that, for example, because we always go to other people's places, we're always guests in other people's grids, and I just am always amazed by the welcoming and the generosity and people who, take a day off work, literally, so that they can be there when the safari comes. It just,
Oh, sure.
it blows your mind. So that there is this huge welcoming spirit. It's true, we are very spread out and we don't communicate as much as we could, but it's definitely better than it used to be. So
Yeah, well,
I'm very optimistic about 2023.
Well, keep in mind, as a grid owner, if you have a grid that you want to promote because you want people to be there from a commercial perspective, you're an advertising venue for them for free. And that is why people are very, we did it because you were coming to see a build that Cameron and I are very proud of. And I did take time off work that day so I could be there with you guys.
Appreciate it.
And we love having you guys there. It's fun showing people around our stuff that we're proud of. But a lot of grids would love to have you come because it's an advertising opportunity. And it is, really, if you have a commercial grid, why would you not want why would you not want Inworld Review or Hypergrid Safari to come look at show off their grid?
But do you really think at the end of the day it actually matters? I mean, it's what you see that counts. I mean,
I think
if I see something wonderful on the commercial grid and then I see something crap on some nice friendly grid, you make judgment calls, don't you?
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised though. I mean, some people look at SL. I mean, people are spending a fortune to stay in SL, which runs poorly and is kind of a madhouse right now. But people will stay there, even though it's in that condition. So a lot has to do with what you see.
I think it's a certain kind of person too. I mean, the thing, 15 years ago, there was a pioneering spirit in Second Life because there was nothing else. And even OpenSim, when it started, what was it, Grumpy Linden or whoever it was, they actually ran a Gridnauts thing to IBM had the bridge from OpenSim to Second Life.
Right.
So they were interested in that kind of thing. But I don't know where, I couldn't pin that down the dates or anything, but a lot of the creative people and the pioneering people have already left Second Life. Some of them are here. Some of them moved to other things. It's a second generation of populace, if that's the right expression, in Second Life. Some of the old guys are still there, but not many. Ooh. Oh, right! Finally!
That's very funny.
Finally, that's it. Yeah, okay, I got the message. I want to talk. I want to say goodbye. Yeah, I'm going to, hello, everybody. I was about to say, I was looking at the clock coming up to the hour, and I thought, it must be more than 90 minutes. I wonder if James is actually going to get round to hitting the alarm. And he did. Wonderful. We had it for once. Okay, folks, we're about to wrap, okay? Perfect timing, even if it probably is a bit late. So, I'm going to thank everybody for being here. First of all, Walter Balazic, who's the voice you heard most of there.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. And as I said, you guys are welcome anytime to come over, and we'll be happy to show you around anywhere you want to say.
Okay. Well, thanks, and Happy New Year, of course.
You too. Happy New Year.
Also to Cameron, the creator of the bunch, I say, who does all the land dates and everything. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too. See, I'm going
Happy
to
New Year.
the whole round here, aren't I? Also, Dick Matherd, probably the quietest of the bunch, who tells us all about the scripting. Thank you, Dirk.
Thank you so very much for having us. It's been fun. I know I've been rather quiet, but it has been fun.
No, if it weren't for the quiet people, if it wasn't for the quiet people, the noisy people wouldn't get a word in edgeways, would they? Think of it that way. And finally, but not least, to Ashton Nobilis, the noble Ashton.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, and a Happy New Year.
And a Happy New Year to you too. And of course, my thanks to James Atlloud, who's actually sitting in the audience today, who's been twiddling with the knobs, getting our film and our video and slideshows and everything sort of synchronized for the
Sure
broadcast.
thing, Mal. I'd wave, but I don't have an anim for that. That's the deal.
It doesn't matter. But Happy New Year to you, James.
To you as well, Mal.
And finally, to my co-host, Thirza Ember, who...
Thank you very much, Mal. And can I just ask these wonderful guests, will they come back maybe another time and talk to us again? We'd love to have you.
No problem.
Anytime. We'd be glad. Yeah, we'd be glad to. Just anytime you want us to come by.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to.
I'll even say more words, yes.
I was just going to say, you've got plenty to say, and also, of course, there's a whole lot more of Littlefield grid to explore. So we haven't been
Exactly. Fascinating discussion.
touched the service. So, Happy New Year, Thirza.
Thank you, Mal. Same to you.
All right. Now, that's about it. I'm going to actually... I'm going to put something on screen. James will know what this is. I don't know whether anybody else saw this. Well, the last things we looked at near the end of the year was the conference, the OpenSim Community Conference. These aren't the total of the people behind them. These are just the 5 members of Avacon. And they sent this out as a Christmas card. Now, James, do you think I dare play it?
I don't know. I have my doubts.
Oh,
it might be. It might good for a laugh. A portion of it.
Yeah,
maybe.
good. This is good for a laugh. We've got to go out with something. So have a quickie looky. I've muted it, I think. Oh, it doesn't even. Oh, it's a screen capture. So hang on.
Well, then it won't play.
No, it played as a silent screen capture. So who's who here? Do you think? Do you recognise anybody?
I think
recognize
that's...
everybody. Yeah.
Oh, I just saw Avatar Joy.
Yeah.
Right. And Marcos Llewellyn and
the bearded bloke here. I think we know him. Not that one. The other one.
Yes, I think we do.
Franz
Yeah.
Charming and Sun Tzu.
And James Atlloud.
Yep. It takes a community.
They looked daft. Oh, but when I got that, actually, the biggest surprise was I didn't realise Jib Jab was still going. Although actually, when I remember using them, they never did anything.
I think you may have just given the Littlefield people some good ideas for next Christmas.
Yeah, we did it. We did a Jib Jab a few years ago. I didn't realize the Jib Jab was still up either.
Right.
We'll have to do that.
I remember it from days ago when it was all Shockwave sort of mini cartoons and things like that, sort of which I used to embed in web pages as a cartoon special.
Yeah, I used to love Jib Jab.
Yeah. Anyway, so I had to finish with something a bit different, and that's what it was. So that's it, folks. Thanks again to all my guests. We will return next week, but do not forget that on Wednesday at noon Pacific time, join us on the region called HG Space Safari, and it's on hg.osgrid.org and port number 80. You don't need to do the whole 8002 with them. So hgosgrid.org.at HG Space Safari. And that's where we meet. And as Thirza mentioned, she gave you a little clue as to where we'll be going. No. But apart from that, we'll be back with this show again next week. So do join us then. And for now, from all my guests, and from Thirza, and from me, and James, of course, a wonderful. Here we go again. Happy New Year. And it's a wrap. Say it again and again and again and again. I've suddenly realised I've forgotten to sing Old Lang Syne.